हम्म। तो सुनना ये करना मैंने आया देखेंगे मंडे को मीटिंग हो गई। वो सीईओ पीओस की ये 10:30 बजे से 1 बजे तक हो। अशफाक सर ने सो भी यूनिवर्सिटी पोस्टर। अच्छा इसके वास्ते करा था मैं वो for the inconvenience. So I'm sharing the screen. I hope it is visible to you. Define disturbed soil sample. So disturbed soil sample or the soil sample in which natural structure of the soil gets disturbed during sampling. Wait 1 second. I guess it is not being shared properly. I'm sharing it once again. So how you will define disturbed soil sample? A gaseous soil sample. Disturbed soil samples are the soil sample in which natural structure of the soil gets disturbed due to sampling. Sampling की वजह से क्या हो रहा है? Disturbed soils are the soil sample in which natural structure of the soil. Natural जो structure था soil का वो disturb हो रहा है during sampling. Define area ratio. So what is area ratio? Area ratio is nothing but maximum cross-section area of cutting edge to the area of soil sample into 100. or area ratio equal to d2 square minus d1 square divided by d1 square into 100. Area ratio, how you are defining, is the ratio of maximum cross section area of the cutting edge. The cutting edge is the maximum cross section area to the area of soil sample into 100. That is AR is equal to d2 square minus d1 square divided by d1 square into 100. Define undisturbed soil sample. Undisturbed soil sample are the soil sample in which the natural structure of the soil and the water content are retained during sampling. अनडिस्टर्ब सॉइल सैंपल क्या है? एक ऐसा सॉइल सैंपल है जिसमें कि नेचुरल स्ट्रक्चर ऑफ द सॉइल एंड द वाटर कंटेंट आर रिटेन ड्यूरिंग सैंपलिंग. Define recovery ratio. Recovery ratio is nothing but length of sample recovered on sample tube to the total length of penetration of sample tube into 100. Recovery ratio क्या है? Length of sample recovered on sample tube divided by total length of penetration of sample tube. Recovery ratio is nothing but length of sample recovered on sample tube. कितना लेंथ रहता सैंपल का जो कि सैंपल ट्यूब पे है, तो द टोटल लेंथ ऑफ पेनिट्रेशन ऑफ सैंपल ट्यूब इनटू 100. डिफाइन इनसाइड क्लियरेंस. इनसाइड क्लियरेंस IC is equal to D3 minus D1 divided by D1 into 100, where D1 and D3 are the diameters of sample tube 1 and 3. Define outside clearance. Outside clearance is equal to D2 minus D4 divided by D4 into 100. So D2 and D4 are the diameters of sample tube 2 and 4. Module 2, define contact pressure. So how you define contact pressure? Contact pressure is defined as the vertical pressure at the surface of contact between the base of surface of footing and the underlaying of soil mass. So contact pressure क्या है? Contact pressure is defined as vertical pressure at the surface of contact between the base of surface of footing and the underlaying of soil mass. So write an expression for computation of secondary consolidation settlement. So how we are defining secondary consolidation settlement? Secondary consolidation settlement SS is given by SS equal to C into H into log to the base 10 TS minus TP divided by TP, where H is the thickness of the clay, CA is secondary compression index, TS and TP is the time factor in second. Define stress isobar. A stress isobar is a curve or contour connecting all points below ground surface of equal vertical stress. स्ट्रेस आइसोबार क्या है? एक कर्व है. स्ट्रेस आइसोबार is a curve or contour connecting all points below the ground surface of equal vertical stress. Write an expression for computation of consolidation settlement. Consolidation settlement is given by the equation SP is equal to U into SR. Where U is the degree of consolidation varying from 0 to 100%. And SR is the total or final consolidation settlement. Write an expression for computation of immediate settlement. Immediate settlement SI is given by SI equal to Q into B into 1 minus mu square into IF by ES, where Q is the intensity of contact pressure, B is the least lateral dimension of footing, mu is the Poisson's ratio, ES is the Young's modulus of velocity of soil, IF is the influence factor, which depends on L by B ratio. State the different types of settlement of footing. The different types of settlement of footings are foundation settlement, immediate settlement, primary consolidation settlement, secondary consolidation settlement. Module 3. Define finite and infinite slope. Finite slope. If slope is limited extent, then it is called as finite slope. Infinite slope. Any slope of rate extent is considered as an infinite slope. Define active pressure. The minimum lateral earth pressure is known as active pressure. Define passive pressure. The maximum lateral earth pressure is known as passive pressure. State the drawbacks of Rankine's theory of earth pressure. The drawbacks of Rankine's theory are: the back of wall is smooth, is for from tooth. The resultant earth pressure always acts parallel to the surface of that field. What are the assumptions made on finite and infinite slope? The assumptions made on finite and infinite slope are the failure of earth slope occurs along a slip surface. जो फेलियर है अर्थ स्लोप का कहाँ पे होता है अक्रॉस ए स्लिप सरफेस द स्लाइडिंग वेजेस मूव्स ए रिजिड बॉडी मॉड्यूल 4 define gross bearing capacity and net bearing pressure intensity gross bearing capacity the total pressure at the footing due to the weight of the superstructure gross bearing capacity क्या है total pressure at the footing due to the weight of the structure is called gross bearing capacity net pressure intensity क्या है qn equal to Q minus sigma naught. The difference in intensities of gross pressure after construction of structure and original overburden pressure is your net pressure intensity. Differentiate between ultimate bearing capacity and net ultimate bearing capacity. Ultimate bearing capacity. The minimum gross pressure intensity at the base of the foundation at which the soil falls in shear. Net ultimate bearing capacity QLF equal to QF minus sigma naught. Define net safe bearing capacity and safe bearing capacity. Net safe bearing capacity QNS equal to QNF by F, where F is the factor of safety. Safe bearing capacity is given by QS. QS equal to QNS plus sigma naught or QNF by F plus sigma naught. List the different types of foundation. Different types of foundation are shallow foundation, deep foundation. Differentiate between safe bearing pressure and allowable bearing pressure. Safe bearing pressure is the intensity of loading that will cause a permissible settlement or specified settlement for a structure. Safe bearing pressure क्या है एक ऐसी intensity of loading है that will cause a permissible settlement or specified settlement for a structure. Allowable bearing pressure क्या है is the net intensity of loading at which neither the soil fails in shear nor any excess settlement determined to the structure. Define anchor piles. Anchor piles are used to encourage against horizontal pull from sheeting pile or other pulling forces. State the uses of compaction piles. Compaction piles are used to compare loose granule soil in order to increase the bearing capacity. What are end bearing piles? End bearing piles are used to transfer load through the pile tip to a suitable bearing stratum, passing soft soil or water. What are end bearing piles? End bearing piles are used to transfer load through the pile tip to suitable bearing stratum, passing soft soil or water. List the uses of laterally loaded piles. The uses of laterally loaded piles are to support horizontal or inclined forces such as foundations of retaining wall, bridges, and dams. Write the equation for converse Lagrange formula. Neta g equal to 1 minus theta by 90 m into n minus 1 plus n into m minus 1 divided by mn. Here m is the number of rows, n is the number of piles in a row, theta equal to tan inverse of d by s in degrees, d is the diameter of pile, s is the spacing of pile in the group. Next, define site investigation. What are the different objectives for which site investigation is done? Site investigation is done for obtaining information about subsurface conditions at the site proposed construction. Site investigation क्या है? Is done for obtaining information about subsurface condition at the site proposed condition. Objective to select the type and depth of foundation. Objective क्या है site investigation का? To select type and depth of foundation. Next, to locate the groundwater level. Next, to determine the lateral earth pressure against retaining wall. Next, to solve the potential foundation problems. Next, to investigate the safety of existing structure. Finally, to determine the bearing capacity of any given structure. तो साइट इन्वेस्टिगेशन क्यों करते हैं क्या ऑब्जेक्टिव साइट इन्वेस्टिगेशन का पहले साइट इन्वेस्टिगेशन बोले थे क्या जो भी साइट जिस पे आप कुछ कंस्ट्रक्शन करना चाहते हैं उसको जाके विजिट करके उसकी सॉइल की प्रॉपर्टीज क्या हैं और ऐसे प्रॉपर्टीज जो कि देखते ही मालूम पड़ते हैं जो हम वो सर्वे करते हैं दैट रिकरेंस सर्विस नोन एज योर साइट इन्वेस्टिगेशन तो इसके ऑब्जेक्टिव्स क्या हैं साइट इन्वेस्टिगेशन के is to select type and depth of foundation. As you know, the different foundations are the shallow foundation, depth foundation, deep foundation. तो कौन सा foundation provide करना आपको कैसा मालूम पड़ेगा? If you know the Type and depth of foundation. To select the type and depth of foundation, set investigation is done. Next, to locate the groundwater level नहीं लेवल तक पानी जा सकता, वो भी आपको ये करना पड़ेगा. To locate the groundwater level. Next, to determine the lateral earth pressure against a retaining wall. Next is to determine the lateral earth pressure against a retaining wall. Next step क्या है? To determine the lateral earth pressure against retaining wall. Next, to solve potential foundation problem. Next step is to solve potential foundation problem. Next, to investigate the safety of existing structure. Next क्या है? आपको investigate करना है safety of existing structure. Next, to determine bearing capacity for a given structure. Describe the standard split spoon within its case. So this is standard split spoon sampler, जिसमें क्या क्या पार्ट्स हैं? कपलिंग है, वेंट पोर्ट्स हैं, बॉल चेक है, स्प्लिट ट्यूब है, ड्राइविंग शू है. So standard split spoon sampler is used to obtain disturbed soil sample. It consists of mainly three parts. क्या क्या है parts? The standard spoon sample is used to obtain disturbed soil. It consists of mainly three parts. Standard spoon sample is used to obtain soil. It consists of mainly three parts. Number one, driving shoe 75 mm length. फर्स्ट क्या है? ड्राइविंग शू है, जिसका लेंथ है 75 mm. ड्राइविंग शू किसको बोल रहे हैं हम? ये जो है ड्राइविंग शू, जिसकी लेंथ 75 mm. नेक्स्ट, स्प्लिट ट्यूब, स्प्लिट लॉन्जिट्यूडनल इंटू 250 टू हाफ 450 mm लॉन्ग. ये है 450 mm लॉन्ग स्प्लिट ट्यूब. थर्ड, कपलिंग एट द टॉप ऑफ ट्यूब, कपलिंग एट द टॉप ऑफ ट्यूब 150 mm लॉन्ग. Coupling at the top of tube 150 mm long. The inside diameter 38 mm and outside diameter is 50 mm. Inside diameter कितना है? 38 mm और outside diameter है 50 mm. The coupling head provided with check value and four maintaining ports of 10 mm dia. 10 mm dia है coupling ports का. To improve sample recovery. After the borehole has been made, the sampler is attached to the drilling rod and is lowered into the borehole. The sample is collected by forcing the sample into soil by repeated number of blows of drop hammer. The sample is withdrawn and a split tube is separated from the coupling head and a driving shoe and the sample is taken out. It is then placed in a container seal and transported to the laboratory. Explain the rotary and percussion method of exploration and the suitability. So rotary drilling method क्या है? A borehole is advanced by rotating a hollow drill rod which has a cutting edge at its lower end. As the drill rod is rotated, the drill bit shear off the material penetrated. A drilling fluid under pressure is introduced through the drilling rod to the bottom of the hole. The fluid carries cuttings from bottom of the hole to the ground surface through annual space between the drilling rod and wall of the hole. Rotary methods used in clay, sand, and rocks. Percussion drilling method. This method is used for making holes in the rocks, bulldozers, and other hard strata. A heavy chisel is alternatively lifted and dropped in a vertical hole. The material gets pulverized. The point where the chisel strikes above water table, water is added to the hole. The water forms slurry with pulverized material, which is removed by sand pump at regular interval. Derive an expression for computation of consolidation settlement. So next question is how to derive the equation for consolidation settlement. The consolidation settlement at any time instant can be expressed by SP equal to U into ST, where ST equal to total or final consolidation settlement. U is the degree of consolidation varying from 0 to 100%. Coefficient of consolidation CV. CV is equal to TV into HDR square by T. If U is less than equal to 60%, TV is equal to T by 4 into U by 100 square. U greater than 60%, TB equal to 1.7813 minus 0.9332 log to the base 10 100 minus 1. For single drainage, HDR is equal to H. For double drainage, HDR is equal to H by 2. Coefficient of compressibility AV is equal to delta E by delta P. Coefficient of volume change MV is equal to AV by 1 plus A naught. Coefficient of permeability K is equal to CV into MV into gamma W. SP equal to H into CC 1 plus E naught log to the base 10 P2 by P1. CC equal to compression index equal to E1 minus E2 log of P2 by P1. E naught equal to GS into WM or CC equal to 0.009 into LL minus 10, where LL is your liquid limit. A water tank is supported by a ring foundation having outer diameter of 10 meter and inner diameter of 7.5 meter. The ring foundation transmits a uniform pressure of 160 kilonewton per meter square. Compute the vertical stress induced at a depth of 4 meter below the center of ring foundation using Buzni's theory. R2 equal to 10 by 2, it comes out to be 5 meter. R1 is equal to 7.5 by 2, it comes out to be 3.75 meter. Q is equal to 160 kilonewton per meter square and Z equal to 4 meter. So your sigma 2 into A equal to Q into KB or sigma Z into A equal comes out to be, if you do the calculation, it comes out to be 23.11 kilonewton per meter square. So what are the assumptions made in Rankins theory and Coulomb's West theory? Rankins theory assumption. The soil mass is homogeneous, dry, cohesionless, and semi-infinite. So how what are the assumptions made in Rankins theory and Coulomb's West theory? Rankins theory assumption is जो soil का जो mass है homogeneous है, dry, cohesionless है and semi-infinite है. The ground surface is a plane which may be horizontal or inclined. The back wall is vertical and smooth. The wall yields about the bare and thus satisfy the condition of deformation for plastic deformation. Coulomb's West theory assumption. The backfill is dry, cohesionless, homogeneous, isotropic, and elastically undeformable but breakable. The slip surface is plane which passes through the heel of wall. The sliding wedge acts as a rigid body. The position and direction of the resultant earth pressure are known. Explain factor of safety used in stability analysis. So factor of safety with respect to cohesion is given by assuming friction to be fully mobilized is given by Fc equal to C by Cm. So C is the ultimate cohesion and Cm is the mobilized cohesion. Factor of safety with respect to friction. Assuming cohesion to be fully mobilized is given by F phi equal to tan phi by tan phi m or equal to phi by phi m. A phi is ultimate angle of shearing resistance. Phi m is the mobilized angle of shearing resistance. Factor of safety with respect to strength. F is equal to tau F by tau. Tau F is ultimate shear strength. Tau F is equal to C plus sigma tan phi. Tau equal to mobilized shear strength or tau is equal to Cm plus sigma tan phi. Factor of safety with respect to height is given by Fh equal to Hc by H, where H is critical height of slope and H is the actual height of slope, or FH equal to FC, assuming cohesion to be fully mobilized. Compare Coulomb's earth pressure theory over Rankin's earth pressure theory. So the soil is dry, cohesionless, homogeneous, and semi-infinite. This is the assumption of Rankin's theory. The soil कैसी है, dry है और cohesionless है, homogeneous है और semi-infinite है. The back of wall is vertical and smooth. जो बैक है वॉल का वर्टिकल एंड स्मूथ है. द ग्राउंड सरफेस इज प्लेन सरफेस विच मे बी हॉरिजॉन्टल और इंक्लाइन. जो ग्राउंड सरफेस है प्लेन सरफेस है विच मे बी हॉरिजॉन्टल और इंक्लाइन. द रिजल्टेंट ऑफ द अर्थ प्रेशर इज ऑलवेज पैरेलल टू द सरफेस ऑफ बैकफिल. जो रिजल्टेंट है अर्थ प्रेशर का वो हमेशा पैरेलल टू द सरफेस ऑफ बैकफिल है. नेक्स्ट कूलम्स वेस्ट थ्योरी. The soil is dry, homogeneous, and isotropic. The back of the wall is rough and plain. The failure surface is plane and friction is distributed uniformly on the failure surface. The portion of resultant net surface and portion are known. So what are the assumptions in Tarzy's analysis? जो सॉइल है होमोजीनियस और आइसोट्रोपिक है और जो स्ट्रेंथ है सॉइल की वो रिप्रेजेंट हो रही कूलम इक्वेशन से द स्ट्रिप फुटिंग हैज ए रफ बेस एंड द प्रॉब्लम इज एसेंशियली टू डायमेंशनल जो स्ट्रिप फुटिंग है इसका क्या है रफ बेस है और प्रॉब्लम क्या है एसेंशियली टू डायमेंशनल the elastic zone has straight boundaries inclined at psi equal to phi to the horizontal and the plastic zones are fully developed. PP consists of three components which can be calculated separately and added. Failure zones do not extend above the horizontal plane through the base of the footing. Limitations. Tertiary theory is suitable for only shallow foundation as the soil compresses, phi changes. Slight downward movement of footing may not develop fully the plastic zones. Explain the different types of bearing capacity failures. There are three types of bearing capacity failures: general shear failure, local shear failure, punching shear failure. So, what is general shear failure? It has well defined failure surface reaching up to the ground surface. The failure is sudden with pronounced peak resistance and the ultimate bearing capacity is well defined. General shear failure क्या है? It has well defined failure surface reaching up to the ground surface और जो failure है sudden है with pronounced peak resistance and the ultimate bearing capacity is well defined. Local shear failure. The failure pattern is clearly defined only immediately below the footing and the failure surface do not reach the ground surface. The failure pattern is clearly defined only immediately below the footing and the failure surface do not reach the ground surface. The failure is not sudden and there is no lifting of footing and the ultimate bearing capacity is not well defined. Punching shear failure. No failure pattern is observed and the failure surface is vertically rightly inclined. Following the parameter of base, the failure is observed in terms of very long settlements and the ultimate bearing capacity is not well defined. Explain the efficiency of pile group. When closely spaced piles are grouped together, the soil pressure develops in the soil as resistance will overlap. The bearing capacity of pile group may or not be equal to the sum of bearing capacity of individual piles in a group. A method of estimating the bearing capacity of group of friction piles is to quantity and give by reduction factor called the efficiency of pile group. QG is equal to neta G into N into QF, where neta G equal to QG by N into QF, where QG is load carried by group of friction points, QF load carried by each friction point, N is the number of points in the group. Write a critical note on negative skin friction. Negative skin friction is a downward drag acting on a pile through a downward movement of the surrounding soil related to the pile. This happens when the surrounding compost soil has been recently filled up soil. As the soil consolidates, the earth fill moves downward, developing friction forces on the perimeter of the pile, which tends to carry the pile further into the ground. The negative skin friction may also be developed by the lowering of the groundwater. Determination of magnitude of skin friction. For cohesive soil, Q NF equal to P into LF into C. For cohesionless soil, QNF is equal to half into LF square into P into gamma into Q into F, where P is the perimeter of soil, LF is the depth of fill in soil which is moving vertically downward, C is the cohesion of the soil in zone of LF, K is the coefficient of earth pressure, gamma is unit weight of soil, F is coefficient of friction equal to tan phi or tan delta or tan the angle of friction half pi into 2 by 3 phi. Design a friction pile group to carry a total load of 4,000 kilonewton at a site where the soil is clear up to a depth of 25 meter underlying by the rock. Take factor of safety as 3, cohesion 80 kilonewton per meter square and check for group action. Assuming the diameter and length of the soil as 0.5 meter and 1.5 respectively, D equal to 0.5 meter, L equal to 15 meter, alpha equal to zero point 0.9. Individual coil QU equal to CU into NC into AB plus alpha CU bar AS. So if you do the calculation, QU comes out to be 1837.83 or QA is equal to, if you do the calculation, it comes out to be 612.613 Newton. Number of coils is 4000 by QA. It comes out to be 6.529. Revised length is 6.529 by 6 into 15. So it is equal to 16.32. So we are assuming the length to be 17 meter. Group action. Providing spacing as 2.5 times D. It comes out to be 1.25 meter. QGN is equal to C into NCAG plus PG C bar L. So it comes out to be 5566.67 kilonewton, which is greater than 4000 kilonewton. Hence the section is safe. Explain the planning stages in subsurface experiment program. So the subsurface exploration is generally carried in three stages: recurrence, preliminary investigation, and finally detailed exploration. So in the first recurrence, what does it does? It includes a visit to the site and study of maps and other relevant records. So what is done in recurrence survey? The site is visited and the study of maps is done and other relevant records is done. It helps in deciding future program of site investigation. It helps in deciding future program of site investigation, scope of work, methods of exploration to be adopted. Next, preliminary investigation to determine the depth, thickness, composition of each site strata. The depth of rock and water table also is determined. Geophysical methods also used for location of boundaries of different strata. Detailed exploration to determine the engineering properties of soils in different strata. It includes extensive boring program sampling, test of soil samples on labs and field at natural state. So this completes our discussion for today. Hope you have a good time. If you have any doubts, you can just ping me or make a comment in the comment box. You can even call me at 8553171859, or you can just mail me at nadim@keybank.university. So I am ending the class. Have a good day.